How old?
18.
And that's what you always wanted to do?
Well, that's the first thing that I really wanted to do. I was in the Air Scouts when I was in high school, and I took 45 minutes of instruction, but that cost me $6, and that's all the money I had. So then I got up to college, and I didn't dream of flying, you know. But I had a skiing buddy, and in the fall of my second year of college, he said, "Joe, you want to learn how to fly?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, but I don't have any money." He said, "Well, we're going to form a club, buy an airplane, and we'll fly it real cheap." And so 15 of us put in $50 apiece, bought an Aranca Champ for $600. That left us $150 for operating expenses. And we flew it for $2.25 an hour, wet. That's in gas, oil, maintenance, everything. And a guy up there gave us instruction for $1 an hour.
Wow.
And the guys did the maintenance, the inspections, and everything else over at the college, or under the supervision of their college professors, because they were majoring in aeronautics. So this was an excellent project for them to have for their class.
Mm-hmm.
So kill two birds with one stone. It was, I wasn't majoring in aeronautics, but I took a few aeronautics classes, but those are the only ones I got A's in. I got F's and everything else, D's, C's, D's, and F's. And so that's how it started. I got my private license for $100 flying time. Instructor, airplane, everything, $100.
Wow.
I got my private license in about February of 1950. And
Did you know any of this, Christy?
No, that's why I'm recording it. So I can keep it.
most of
it
this is in
down.
my journal, but I don't have the part about me flying through the sprinklers on the golf course. I'll put that in.
Yeah.
That was in the summer of 1952 in Arizona. That was Coolidge, Arizona golf course.
What kind of money would you make?
Well, I remember some days I'd make $100, and to me, $100 a day back then was big money. Big money. And let's see, they paid us pilots a penny a pound. So if I put on 10,000 pounds in a day, I made $100. But that was a big day. The guys flying the Stearmans could do that, but I was just flying a Cub, and they would haul 1,200 pounds, and I could just haul 600 pounds. And so it took me twice as long to make $100 as it did them.
How long would you stay up?
Oh, each flight would be, I never timed it, but I imagine 10 minutes for a load of dust. So I made $6 in 10 minutes.
And then how far away would you have to fly?
Well,
to the top?
that varied, but usually just a mile.
Okay.
Usually the farmers down there, see, they had big farms in Arizona, and the farmers would usually have a strip right on their farm. And so the dust people would come out and unload the bags of dust, and we just land right there on the farmer's strip and load up and take off and make one turn and be right on the field. Man, that was fun. I loved that crop dusting. That was fun, going under the power lines.
Any rules? Don't crash?
That's rule number one, don't crash. I had a friend that was going under the power lines one day, and he got so close to the pole over here, he knocked the wingtip light off of the wing of his airplane. Is that close, or is that
Wow.
close? And then one day, I was spraying defoliation at the end of the year. This was 1950. And I was spraying with usually it was a water-based spray, so the stuff settled down on the cotton. But this day they were using an oil-based spray, kind of a diesel fuel or something like that, and it just hung in the air, and I'd fly back, I'd make a pass, and then come around and make the next pass, and the stuff just hanging in the air, and they get over my goggles, so I'd take my t-shirt and fly with one hand and wipe off my goggles with the other, and misjudged pulling up at the end of the field, and I hit the power lines with my wheel, and it just come up like this, and the power line stretched out, and it broke off the insulators on about 3 or 4 poles each way, and rolled under my wheel. If it rolled over my wheel, it'd have probably dumped me upside down, which would have been very bad. And but boy, it was before sun up, and boy, the sparks flew, and it burned out a transformer.
Did you get in trouble?
No, I didn't. It cost my company something, but they had insurance for that. And but that's close. That is close to death as you could get, because that would have likely killed me. It might have broken the wire, but it was a pretty heavy wire, so it probably would have pulled me up just like this, over upside down, and I would have upside down. That would kill me. Man, oh man, I shudder when I think of it. Back then I was so dumb I didn't, I just said, well, hell, that was close, wasn't it?
And so you probably had a seatbelt, and that was it.
That was it.
No,
Seatbelt.
nothing coming across your shoulders, chest.
No. Seat belt, and I had a leather helmet on, no crash helmet or anything.
Did you wear a scarf?
Wore a t-shirt. One of my friends had some wires like that, and it put him upside down and gave him a brain concussion, and he was in bad shape. I went to see him in the hospital, and serious head damage.
So how long did you do that before you moved into airlines?
Well, I did that for 2 summers while I was in college, and my second year was right after I graduated, and then I graduated in about the 1st of June, and I went to ROTC summer camp at Hamilton Air Force Base by San Francisco for 2 weeks, I think it was, or 3 or 4. And after that, I went down to Arizona and dusted some more. And then I went into the Air Force about the end of October. So I was in the Air Force 3 years, and I came out and started flying for the airlines.
What'd you fly in the Air Force?
I started off in a Piper PA-18, which is what I had been flying crop dusters in. And then I went to T6s, and then I went to T-28s and B-25s, and then B-29s, and then KC-97s, air-to-air refueling tankers, 4-engine reciprocating prop engines.
Now, how much choice did you have in what planes you flew? Did you get to choose your pathway, or did they just kind of say, you're going here, you're going
Certain
there?
time, when I graduated from Hondo, the instructors said, Ferguson, I'll give you your choice. Whatever you want to do, I'll recommend you for that. And I could have gone to jets, or I could have gone to multi-engine, but I wanted to fly airlines, so I said, well, I'll go to multi-engine. So I had a choice. Some of my buddies went to jets, and it would have been fun flying a T-33. Boy, those are Cadillacs. They're quiet and smooth and yeah, one time down at Hondo, we were flying a PA-18 and we're doing a maneuver called a four-leaf clover. You went up and come down, you did a 270-degree turn each time. You did 4 of them. You would come out, go in the same direction you started. 4 270-degree turns. So my instructor says, well, I'll demonstrate this four-leaf clover, Mr. Ferguson. I said, yes, sir. So he started in, and he had been flying real heavy that week, and he was real tired, I could tell it. And he got started in that, and he got screwed up. And he came out on a heading he wasn't supposed to, and I just kind of sit there, and finally he said, oh hell, Mr. Ferguson, will you show me how to do it? I said, yes sir, so I showed him how to do it. He was sure a good guy. Winfield G. Spurlock. I located him in about 1985. Jefferson was about 10 years old. He was living down between Dallas and Tyler. And so one time I took Jefferson and Joshua with me down to see Mom. And so I rented a car in Dallas and drove down and I stopped and we stayed all night with him, and his wife cooked us up a good southern cooking, and we went out and shot some clay pigeons, and then he had some model airplanes. He'd made them by the zoo and flew those around, and we just had a good time. It sure was. It was just great to, and I hadn't seen him then since, gee, it was 30 years. Last time I saw him was 1954, about May of 54. And so this is about 85, that's 31 years. And I got his name and location and everything just by accident. I don't remember who I got that from, and I located him and called him up and went down to see him, but it was just a joyous reunion, you know, to see my old flight instructor. He told me about all of his flying exploits he had done. He had been a major in the Marines in World War II. But I wonder if he was flying down there with Pappy Boyington's Black Sheep. I guess not, because Boyington was a major and Jake was a major. But I wonder if they knew each other. I didn't know anything about Boyington at that time, so I didn't ask him. But he was in the South Pacific, and Boyington was in the South Pacific. I bet he knew about him.
Either of you know who he is?
Mm-mm.
What?
I just asked them if they knew who Pappy Boynton was.
They don't know anything.
It used to be a movie.
Kids these days don't know anything.
We have Google, Dad. We
What?
know everything.
Yeah,
Once a week, Pappy had his Black Sheep
yeah.
squadron on TV.
Although those TV exploits from his squadron mates later gave him heck about that because they were not realistic.
Oh
It
yeah.
was just movie stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, no doubt that Boyington was kind of a drinker and a hellraiser and everything, but he could fly that airplane, and he knocked down those Japs, you know. And but all that stuff they had on TV was just Hollywood stuff, just a bunch of baloney. That didn't happen. Didn't happen. But boy, he and his squadron knocked down those Japs. The Japs used to call that Corsair the Whistling Death, because it knocked down a bunch of Japs. It's funny, I watch that. I get them on my computer down here. I can pull up the Black Sheep, you know, and see an episode, and I do that quite often. Because I really enjoy him. Old Conrad's a good actor, and they have some good episodes on there, interesting, and, but I see Borington take off in one airplane, and when he comes back, he's in a different airplane.
Wearing something different.
Well, he takes off in one that's, got 14 Jap flags on it, and he comes back in one that's got about 6 Jap flags on it, different airplane. And I don't know the differences of them, but some of the airplanes in that video had 3-bladed props, and some of them had 4-bladed props. I don't know the difference, but I think all those, I think the engines were R2800 engines, and I thought they all had 4-bladed props, but I don't know, they might have had some 3-bladed that were just a little bit longer, or a different pitch, or I don't know the answer to that. But I know some of them have 3-bladed props and some of them have 4-bladed props.
So how were you affected, or were you affected by any of the wars? Korea, Vietnam, were you close to having to go over?
No, and it's a good thing because I'm a natural born coward. But I was in flight training in Hondo when the Korean War ended. And then later on, I was flying airlines, and I was between wars, and if I'd have stayed in, they'd have probably sent me over to Vietnam to fly tankers, but which was not very dangerous. I don't know of very many tankers that got shot down because the fighters had come back down over friendly territory to refuel and then go back up over enemy territory. But yeah, the one time the Air Force sent me a questionnaire, and I just wrote on it, "I ain't going back," and sent it back to them. Hell, it's wondering how did you get put in jail. You know, I said, "I ain't going back," and sent it back to them. I wonder how I got away with that. It's amazing. Another thing, when I was in B-29 training down at Randolph Air Force Base, how was it strange that there was a windmill off the south end of the runway. And when I'd take off to the south, I'd hold that B-29 down, and I'd miss that windmill about 10 feet. And I bet I really made that thing spin. I couldn't see it, of course, it was behind me by the time but I just missed that, and finally the instructor gave me hell about it, so couldn't do that anymore. And then a lot of times I'd skip classes down there, and I go down the flight line, I say, "Hey, you need a co-pilot for a test op," or they had a big maintenance base there, and I had to test op the airplanes after certain kinds of maintenance, so I'd get fly co-pilot and C-119s and all other kind of stuff, and the other guys didn't get to do that. I don't know how I ever got away with that. They never asked me, "Ferguson, where you been?" I just managed to pass the test some way or another, I don't know how. But I missed lots of classes, and one day, I knew a little bit of Morse code. I learned it from just by flying, and we had to take a Morse code test. Beep, 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 dee-da, 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 da, da. And so I passed it real easy. But it wasn't because I knew it so good, but the guy said, "Hey, Ferguson, how you doing that?" So I told him, I said, "Hey, don't try to write down A for da-da and B for da-did-it or any of that kind of stuff. Just when you get the code, write the code down. Did-da, da-did-it, da-da-da-did, did-da-da-da-da. Then when you get it all written down in code, you got plenty of time, you go back and you write A, B, I, S, E, E, A, C, A, T. You know, after you get it written down in code, it's easy to go back and decipher it. I was the only one smart enough to figure that out. And And one day, we had a cross country down at Hondo in a T6, and I was supposed to get up, take off, and fly up here and report in over a checkpoint, go to another. And I've been in the regimentation so long, I just busted my chains or something. I went haywire. And I took a T6 and I went out across the canyon. I was going down this canyon and chasing the deer and the buzzards and everything. And finally I come back over and checked in at a checkpoint and then come on down back over to Hondo and landed. And I wasn't the only one that did that. There were some others. I don't know why, but I gotta think we got to the point where we're just tired of being regimented. Left, right, and marching down the class and marching to the flank line and marching here and marching there and do this, don't do that and all that stuff. And finally you just, you know, at least I did. And good afternoon. Hello, if you want something, speak up. No, Barbara, go to hell. And I don't know how I got away with that one. I shudder every time I think about it. I sure had a good time, though.